Hello, welcome to Meanwhile in the Falklands. We are so organised this week because we're actually recording this at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, and normally it's like Friday morning, so, you know, look at us on top of things.
Just for you, listener.
Isn't it great?
Yeah. We are what's known as on the ball.
And just before we started out, I did say to Thomas I wasn't feeling in the mood for this, and he said something really quite outrageous, which I'm not going to repeat to you, listener.
I mean, she makes it sound like it was really vulgar. I was just.
It wasn't that vulgar.
I was just spitting bars of truth. Like,
Okay.
That's all it was.
That's all right then. Let's have a look. It is a beautiful day, as Thomas said, and it's such a shame that you cannot. Oh no, you can appreciate it because we can take a picture
Out of our office window.
out of our office window and post it on the podcast that appears on YouTube. We do have a very sunny office, don't we, Hannah?
Yes,
you
we
and I.
do. It's a very warm office. It's always very, very warm. But then we do have our radiators blaring whilst we are
Well, yeah, we switched
working, and it is very hot outside.
Yes, yes,
Well,
it is that.
speaking of weather, it's been so topsy-turvy this week that on my 80s and 90s radio show last night, my theme was weather.
Oh,
so
really?
any song or artist that had anything. So
Oh,
we're
no,
gonna have
but
to
it was only a little bit of it.
bleep the copyright. So there were things like if it was wet, that anything that's sort of meteorological. You had Rolling Stones, something Rainbow, whatever that song's called. I can't remember.
She's like a rainbow.
She's like a rainbow. Thank you very much, Hannah. Encyclopedia of knowledge over there.
Yeah, check it.
I drop me your microphone.
Okay, we'll just plug it back. Just plug it back in again. I've taken the headphones off. I'm not monitoring sound. This is
Sorry,
not the
listener.
BBC. So yes, weather is happening tomorrow at MPA.
Yeah, I believe weather happens every day.
Weather is happening tomorrow. No, it's stopping the air bridge going out. It came in. You said you saw it.
Yeah,
land.
we saw it land whilst we were out filming a court report this afternoon. Apparently, we already know that it's not going out tomorrow.
It's
So
not
that
going out
bodes
tomorrow.
well for the
Why
weekend.
is that? Look at it.
Because
The
of
weather's
weather. Because of weather.
lovely. What about the weather?
Who knows?
Apparently,
It just
apparently it's set for a turn again tomorrow. We had a lovely afternoon yesterday, and we've got a lovely afternoon again today. But apparently tomorrow it all turns back to classic
Well, I hope
Falklands.
it doesn't interfere with our jet setting on the weekend.
Well, we'll come back to that. Don't you see? You're just preempting it. That's like fourth thing down the list.
To be
We've
fair,
got other
every time
things to get
Hannah
in.
talks, we need to have like a disclaimer, like spoiler alert.
Actually, it's teasing the listener, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Teasing this
Teasing the listener.
Hannah's a tease.
Anyway, Carl's away. Poor lad.
Poor lad.
Poor
He's
lad,
loving
he's
it.
on holiday. What a poor
No,
guy.
because he left us, and while he was travelling from the Falklands to Cape Verde, we were trying to get some photos off your phone or my phone
Yeah.
or something onto our system. So the best way and easiest to do that is to use a social media app and just get it to us. But of course, then it appears on. We have a virtual production group that is on
Poor old
social
Carl
media.
logged into the internet at Cape Verde and saw 101 photographs of himself.
Of just of him. He's going, why is there all these pictures of it? Well, we just miss you.
I
Carl.
find the
That's
production
what it is.
group, the virtual production group's quite funny. It's photos of us, court reports. Photos of us, court reports.
Because, listener, it's just easier when we write the court report, we just stick it into the social media chat, and then we can pull it off there and put it onto a teleprompter that we have on our phones, because we don't remember what we're saying. We actually
think
read
for-
it.
Court is quite
Yeah,
difficult, isn't it?
exactly that. For most things, I mean, I'm willing to blag my way through a piece to camera.
You
on
do a
pretty
lot of
on
that,
pretty
don't you?
much
Yeah.
anything. But on a court report, there's just
There's too many facts.
yeah,
You can't
and
mess up.
if you slip up and you don't really realise,
Very
don't
early
want
on.
to end up in contempt of court.
Very early on, you did a Walkie Talkie, a piece to camera, and I remember looking at it and thinking, that's really good. And then I was doing a piece and I thought, I'm going to do that, but because of my eyesight, I can't go too far away from the auto cue. Clearly, you're remembering stuff because you were like 3 million miles away from the camera when you did it.
What about the bullet point life? So
I
bullet
did that.
points are my key facts, and then I blag.
Written on your hand.
I blag around it. Absolutely. Just
That's so
looking at the back of my hand.
Several apologies to make about this week's programme. First of all, there is a spelling error in the What's On guide.
Oh, my bad.
But listen, it's no, it's not a spelling error. It's just that your fingers are going too fast. And challenge, it's
What can I
challenge,
say?
ginge.
Oh,
or
is there an
something.
extra engine
Oh,
challenge?
there's a, yeah. So
So it's not so much a spelling mistake as I tried to lengthen that word. I was going for the extra Scrabble points here.
Kyle in his Rockhopper piece does pronounce it Port Stephens.
Oh no, he doesn't.
He does, and not Port Stephens.
Oh, poor old
Oh
Kyle.
well, he was getting it in the neck when he first started here because he was calling it Falklands Islands. Not Falkland Islands or the Falklands. He was calling it on the news Falklands Islands, and the number of people that came up to us to say it.
The government released a first day cover once with Falklands Islands written on it.
Yeah.
Right, let's get on to your lovely trip. Tell us what you're doing.
This is the best bit about the podcast because Hannah and I are going away for 5 days.
And we're leaving. Woo! Get some sunshine.
Yes, that's true.
Do you want to take the lead on it?
I shall. We're going to party in Brazil, is what's happening, and we're leaving Mrs. Flames on her own.
Well, to be fair,
run
she
the
is
whole
not
show.
wrong.
Do you know what? It sounds terribly glamorous. I had to message our prospective new FITV employee to say about this week, and I said, and Thomas and Hannah are going off to Brazil, and it just sounded incredibly glamorous life. Yeah.
I mean, like the way we say it is just like it happened. It's the way I've been saying it to all my friends. So, oh, what are you up to this weekend? I'm just going to Brazil. It's just a business thing.
Just a business trip that we bought nice and clear for, darling.
Absolutely. Before we actually get on to why we are going, which we will talk about in a bit more depth, actually really gutted. My best friend from university works for a marketing agency in the UK, and he is currently in Sao Paulo this very minute on an actual international business trip, and he leaves on Friday. So he leaves 2 days before I get there, and we haven't seen each other in ages. So, but it's all right. We're going on holiday when I get back to the UK.
That's a
So it's okay.
Anyway,
but we got a great trip coming up.
You're going to first you're going to from here to Punta to Santiago.
Indeed.
Santiago to
One
Sao
night
Paulo.
in Santiago.
One night in
Very excited.
Yeah.
That could be a song, yeah.
And we're up at 4 a.m, aren't we, for the next day?
It's basically no sleep. We land in Santiago. I've actually got the itinerary right next to me because Hannah and I have just been looking at it. We land in Santiago at 9 p.m. and our check-in is 4 a.m. the next day to fly to Sao Paulo. So we were looking at the hotel going, oh, there's a gym, there's a spa, there's a pool. And we're actually thinking, we'll probably just get there, eat some food, collapse, get up 4 hours later and get back on another plane.
Throw on the suit.
Yeah, I'm not ready to be an international businessman just yet. I don't think I can handle all of the jollying around. I'm just kidding. I love it.
It did make a slight rookie error. We looked at the weather, didn't we, of Brazil, and it was looking like it was going to be about 28 degrees while we were there. What kind of suit did you order, Thomas?
I bought an Italian wool suit.
You'll be all right.
Thomas, are we sweating?
Well, what I'm hoping is that it will be just like the States, where despite the fact that it's boiling outside, everywhere is massively air conditioned, and I'll be everyone else will be really cold in their summer clothes, and I'll be nice and toasty.
Wool is the most amazing fabric ever. I can tell you
Falklands
that
wool
now.
especially.
Falklands wool especially.
Plug, plug, plug.
Which we'll talk about that later on the year when we're at Saldero Ramsale, because that's all about the microns, isn't it?
And your lovely idea of having a Yarndale here in the Falklands.
Oh yeah, that's my dream.
If anyone's ever watched Step Brothers, they know what the Catalina wine mixer is. It's a massive conference where they sell helicopters, and any time I hear Saladero Ramsale, I'm around to Catalina wine mixer, Saladero Ramsale.
Okay, so that's
I'll be in the next Will Ferrell movie. I'm calling it now.
That's a pop culture reference for you. Anyone over my age won't get it.
Don't go to the Stanley Arms quiz.
So yes, then you're coming back, hopefully, on Wednesday the 20th when the flight returns. What time's the flight landing on Wednesday the 20th?
Well, it'll be the inaugural second flight, won't it? We'll be coming back on.
Yes, indeed. So it's the first one. It's the LATAM group are the biggest airlink providers in South America. This one in particular is with LATAM Brazil. And we'll be leaving Sao Paulo at 6:50 in the morning. We're going to be having a stop off in Cordoba in Argentina on the way down, and we will land at the Falkland Islands at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So fingers crossed.
No rotors.
Actually, not fingers crossed for no rotors. I want there to be rotors. I want an international scandal.
In case anyone's sitting there wondering, I am the designated survivor of FITV and I'm left here to hold the fort. Actually, everything is happening this weekend.
You do have quite a busy weekend without us.
So there's a rugby match on Saturday, which we will come back to because I want you to tell us about last week's. There's the triathlon on Sunday morning. Then there's a new exhibition, the A to Z art exhibition, which is organised by the fantastic Julie Halliday. I already know it's going to be fantastic. I have seen some of the entries and they look amazing. They look amazing, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then there's a Government House reception on Tuesday, and then you're back, and then nothing else happens. So
it is quite funny looking over at the next 10 days of news board, and everything in orange is what's coming up soon, and it pretty much stops when Hannah and I land.
So we've got a free day in our itinerary for most of
well, you've got time to put all your pieces together. That's what you've got.
We're not taking a laptop, so
anyway,
can't.
Tell us about last week's rugby match.
So obviously last week was Remembrance weekend. As listeners will know, we talked about what was coming up on last week's podcast, but on the Saturday went up to Mount Pleasant to film the local BIFSI Combined Forces, so that's British Forces South Atlantic Islands Combined Forces team, play against the Welsh Guards, who are down on their tour at the moment. It was a really fiercely aggressive and competitive match. Do not watch Falklands in Focus this week, because me trying to stagger my way through describing what's happening in a rugby game is quite awful, really.
There was a number of people. What shocked me is the number of people who were wearing slings. Because you were telling us about some chap who
it was disgusting.
popped his arm.
So
the listeners who are a bit of dodgy, don't listen to this bit. But go on, carry on.
So the BIFSI team won the game. Spoiler alert: 20-0, 4 tries to 0. It was so windy that the kicking game was mute. There was no point. Every conversion went about as close to the post as I probably could have got it, so leave that to the imagination. But as BIFSI ran over their second try just before half time, a member of the Welsh Guards team got his shoulder dislocated, and everyone was sort of lining up waiting for the conversion to happen, and he stayed kneeling down on the floor with his arm dead straight. So everyone on the touchline realised what's going on. He's got an issue with his shoulder, tries to move his arm, not happening, so he beckons over a friend. And you think at this point, he's going to ask for a hand, help him off the pitch or something. No, he asks his friend to put his shoulder and pop it back into place. So they give one huge yank on his arm, at which point the arm drops back down. He tries to wiggle it, still not okay. They do that again and again and again, and on the fourth one, it goes back in. He moves it around a bit. He's like, yeah, good. Referee blows for half time anyway, pretty much immediately after, so that's okay. He runs off, clutching his arm, puts a sling on throughout the whole of half time. You're like, well, that's his game over, gutted. And being the Welsh Guards team, they're very fiercely patriotic. If you've ever been to Wales, if you've ever been to a pub in Wales during a Welsh rugby game, you know how much they pride themselves on their sporting ability. So they have this fierce war cry just before the second half starts. He's part of it. You're like, oh, cool, he's still part of the team. And he throws off the sling and runs back on the pitch. He plays 25 more minutes. He comes off, and his shoulder, just even through a rugby shirt, looked mangled. He comes off, whacks on another sling, grabs a can of beer and gets into the back of an ambulance.
So you were saying there were about four or five of them
there
had
were
to come in?
4 injuries in total. There was a broken elbow, a dislocated hip, a dislocated shoulder, a concussion, and an unconfirmed second dislocated shoulder, but only 4 of them went to the hospital.
Hip.
Yeah.
Oh, that
does sound very painful.
Yeah. But it was really interesting because we played the BIFSI team as the Falkland Islands rugby team, and watching them play another military team makes you realise how much easier they take it on us.
Oh,
they
really?
do not hit us as hard as they can hit, because there are some of those challenges you're like, oh.
So Mrs. Fones, will you be taking part in the rugby over the weekend?
No, I won't. I'm going painting on Saturday morning because that's my relaxation and trying to de-stress Mrs. Foams is Saturday morning painting. By the way, if you're in,
But you're going to carry on that theme after it, though.
yeah, if you're in Stanley on a Saturday morning, I highly recommend get in touch with Richard and see if you can get on his watercolour painting course. Yeah, rugby. It sounds like if it's going to be like this out there, it's going to be a fantastic day. There's going to be a barbecue.
It's family fun day.
Yeah,
It's a non-contact one as well, isn't it? It's just touch rugby. So.
Exactly that.
What
And
we're gonna do
every
for the-
team has to have at least one.
Two females,
yes, 2 females, 2 youths, or a mixture of both. So
yeah.
every 7-a-side team
Evenly
must
matched.
contain a woman or a child, essentially.
Because they're bad at rugby, obviously, and not as good as the men.
Well, it's
Tell
more
me-
so that you don't just throw loads of big, strong men.
Yeah. Tell me what they're going to do for the goals.
Well, because it's touch rugby, you don't kick.
Yeah, okay.
So it's essentially the kind of rugby I played when I was 8 years old, playing for Luton Rugby Football Club. Plug. And it's just your pass down the line. It's quite a narrow, not very long pitch, and it's all just about running back and forth, trying to get Trying to get a try. I don't think the pitch is more than 25, 30 metres long.
You were telling us about with the rugby club a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. Was it on the podcast? You were telling us something when you were a child and you were in a line waiting for a pitch or something.
Just like, don't pass the ball to me.
Yeah.
So when I used to play rugby when I was 8 years old, it was the classic 7-a-side, and there's no scrums, but when you get tackled, you get touched. It was still touch rugby at that point. So when you get touched on the hips, it has to be a hand on each hip. That tackle has been made. You have to stop and pass the ball down the line. And I always used to position myself at the furthest point down the line and just sort of like wiggle my finger going, no, don't pass it to me, no. I hated it. I only played it because my dad loved the sport. But I used to hate it. And then the best player on our team had a horrible habit which used to infuriate my father to no ends, which was that every time he got the ball, because he was fastest, he would run behind all of us to try and like get to the other side of the team. But by doing that, he's playing every single member of his team offside. He can't pass the ball to anyone. So he was really good and he used to score all the time, but the adults used to get so annoyed with him because he wasn't a team player.
What's your sport, Hannah?
Oh no, I don't have a sport.
Swimming.
Yeah,
no, you are quite the swimmer.
When I was younger, I used to do horse riding and anything and everything, tennis and things
You've done
like
any
that.
horse riding here?
I haven't.
So you've been here how long? Nearly 2 years.
Yeah, no, don't say that.
It's quite hard to get. This is the thing with the Falklands. There aren't that many clubs. But if you know the right people or have the right kit, then the place is amazing for the things you can do.
Yeah, I wanted to do some sailing down here, and I actually bumped into Sally Ponce in a hotel that I'm not going to say the name of, in a bar in a hotel that I'm not going to say the name of, and she mentioned the sailing club because I said to her, I'd like to go sailing, blah blah blah, and apparently there's a chap coming down that if that needs hands. Deck hands and stuff and to go out sailing. So I'm hoping I can get on there and have a go with him.
I'm really surprised there's not like, some dinghies, like some wayfarers, because the harbour I would have thought would be perfect.
Especially this kind of day.
A company like Falklands Outdoors, which has only really this is their second season now, are really the kind of company that I could see moving into that because it's Dan Biggs and he's brought down. He has 12 kayaks now, so he's got quite the collection. He does sea kayaking around here, and it's extremely popular. He'll take people out on hikes. He does some bouldering tours. A lot of it is for the summer season, of course, and the tourists. But I could see his business expanding as the years go on, getting more people and more equipment, and it's just about having that capital to begin with. But
is it just him himself who takes, or has he got other instructors he's employing?
Just him at the moment. It's just him.
So what, does he at one point take 12 other people out?
No, I think he only ever takes 8 out at a time, and I think he's licensed to take 8 out at once. But I believe there's some other people like Zoran, former teacher at Fix, who's come back down, actually teacher again, I guess, because he's taken a hiatus, come back. I think he's qualified as well, so he does. He's working with them to do like the hiking things as well. So I don't know if he's getting in touch with that. But if you're coming down to the Falklands this summer, look for Falklands Outdoors on Instagram. Drop them a message because it's a small community, small place run by one person. They're so quick at getting back to you. And there's no better way to see the Falkland Islands, in my opinion, than a kayak out on the water and actually seeing the coastlines and some of the areas that are still closed off because of mine signs. Yeah. Being on the other side of that.
Do you know what? I might try that because I have kayaked before. I'm not the sportiest person
I would
in
like
the
to do
world,
it before I go.
but
So
I
we
do
could
like
always do an
kayaking.
FITV outing.
Yes, there'll be a lot of screaming from me. Anyway,
when the sea lions attack you.
for those of you, stop it. Those of you who eagle listeners of the programme, you'll notice that the What's On guide this week has got slightly different music on because we have some Christmas stuff. Yes, it may only be Thursday the 14th of November, but
it's Christmas.
It's pretty much Christmas.
It's pretty much Christmas, and so there's a little Christmas jingle. There's a little Christmas hat I've seen on the side there.
I mean, that can definitely be worked on. I put like the minimum amount of effort to make it Christmassy. I changed the music and put a little hat on.
So how gutted are you that you're going to miss the Christmas Challenge concert?
Oh, well, you know me. It's the thing that I look forward to the most every year. People have advent calendars taking them to Christmas. Mine takes me to the Challenge concert, so that tells you everything. And it's all little bottles of spirit, so I can't remember it. But I am quite gutted. It was really fun last year, and
so we haven't got
Paula's plans for this year sound fun.
Yeah, we haven't got long to do it. So
we can't give away.
We're not giving
any ideas away.
But just watch out, Fire Brigade.
Kyle's first ever one.
Carl's first one, and whoever the new person is, it could be their first one if they can get on the right flight.
Please get here on time.
Yes, so that will be good fun. Thomas, you haven't got long before you. I'm looking at the board for next week, and it says Tom to camp. So, are you going to take your last weekend?
Friday night and Saturday night, my last weekend in the Falklands. A friend has organised a trip to camp for me. Is my last hurrah.
Camping camp.
To camp in camp. Well, it's a self-catering, but apparently it's one of the more interesting self-caterings because it was the only one available. So,
Okay.
not that I'd want to diss anything because they all have their own particular charms. Let's say.
The place that shall not be named.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Voldemort's lair.
So that sort of comes to the end of the podcast this week. So join us next week when hopefully you two will be back in one piece.
Oh, we're just sunning it up in Brazil.
Or sunning up in Brazil, and I'm on my Jack Jones.
Never leaving.
Never coming back.
Oh, Paula, the flight didn't make it in. Everyone else reappears. How did you guys get in? Oh, Tom and Hannah, they just missed it.
So we shall see you next week.
Thanks for
Bye.
listening. Bye.